Hi, thank you for joining me for today for day 7 of 30 Days of Sketches with Christie's Beautiful Life. And today's sketch has been created by Tracey England. I'll pop it in the top left-hand corner there. So I'm documenting three 3x4 photos of the building that was used for the Arconia building in Only Murders in the Building. If you've watched that series, we loved it, and James and Amelia were determined that we were going to see the building that it was based on. So we had a little walk through the park in New York and found it in the Upper West Side. It was really nice to go and see that area. So I'm using Vicki Boutin's Where To Next, and I've pulled out 3 papers to add as the mats behind my photos, and now I'm just going to add some white cardstock behind these photos. And honestly, I struggled with this. The photo mats that I chose behind the photos weren't great. The colours just didn't work right for me. And I will switch this out. You'll see I do stick everything down, have a play with the background, and then come back to it afresh and decide that it's definitely not working for me. But sometimes you need to go through that process to realise what's right and what's wrong. I wasn't thrilled with the colours when I pulled them out, so I should have stopped at that point, but I kept pushing on because sometimes you have these feelings and then when it's finished, you absolutely love the layout. So sometimes you just have to trust the process. But today that wasn't the case. So I just trimmed these. I don't know the measurements of these papers. I just trimmed them down slightly smaller than each other to create the mat that's in the photo. I know that the first piece was probably about 4.5 inches because it's bigger than the photos. And I was trying to copy the sketch fairly closely on this one. So just trying to position the photos, work out exactly where I want them and how I want to do this. And I'm just thinking, right, just glue them down. Just glue them down, because then you can carry on working on everything else and hopefully it'll come together. But like I say, that wasn't the case. But can't always trust the process, I guess. So there are the 3 photos down on that mat, and now I'm bringing in one of my stencils from Simple Stories. It's one of their travel ranges from a few years ago. I think it's called Let's Travel, and I love this stencil. It's like a street map. So I'm pulling out my distress crayons, again, my watercolour pencils from Tim Holtz. I've actually pulled out 3 in the end. I pull out this aqua colour, the deeper blue, and then the pale blue, which is, I think, speckled egg. So just colouring in all these squares, and I realised halfway through if I bring the photos in, then I won't have to colour the middle bit because that's going to be covered by the mat anyway. So my idea is just to scribble in all these different squares and then add water to activate those watercolour pencils. I'm happy for these to bleed underneath one another, so I'm not worried that the stencil is lifting up slightly as I blend the water into them. Also happy for the colours to blend into each other. I just want a nice soft watercolour background for my photos here down the right hand side. So just, as I say, just activating with water. I probably with hindsight could have actually just sprayed this with a water bottle and then just blended it with a brush afterwards. That probably would have been a bit quicker, but I went this way anyway. So sorry that you're having to watch all this, but you'll see it quickly happens, just adding the water and then just making sure that every part of the scribbled pencils is covered with the water. Almost there, and I think there were a couple of blocks that I missed out, but by blending in the water, you can just carry that colour over to the other blocks that have been missed. So I don't know why I decided to do those ones in the middle as well, but there you go. So you can see it has bled underneath the stencil, particularly at the top, but I do love that look. And now I'm just grabbing my brayer to roll it on the remaining ink that's behind the stencil. And it just gives a nice stamp transfer. So just blending in where I felt that it needed a little bit more blending in so that the lines weren't quite so white where it hadn't bled under the stencil, and then adding some splatters with the remaining colour that's on the stencil. I'm just going again at the bottom just to get a little bit more of that stamping effect, and then leaving that to dry. So that's all dry now, and I brought the mat back in, and straight away I realised that it's definitely not right. It clashes a bit with that watercolour background that I've created as well, so I'm going to switch it. At first I think I'm going to use that street map paper that I'd used on the base before, but it's still too teal. So I end up going for the piece of paper that you can see on the left there with the houses on it. So I'm just pulling the photos off, and I'm actually going to layer them on top of most of those buildings, but leaving that large blue one showing in the middle. I will switch it over in a sec. So just seeing if that green will work, and here we go. Switching it over, and I'm much happier. I definitely prefer neutrals, especially when I've created a mixed media background like that. I'm realising I'm more of a monochromatic scrapper, or just choosing one or two tones and going with that really, rather than trying to mix all the colours. So you can see the idea now. I'm just staggering the photos on either side. So I'm going to trim off these buildings at the end because I don't want those different colours interfering. And once again, I'm sticking with the blue palette, which I seem to go for an awful lot. Just trimming a tiny bit more off that yellow building just so it doesn't show with that last photo overlapping. And that just makes me so happy, seeing all that sea of neutral and blue. Much better than me trying to do the colours. I envy people who can do all those colours over a page. I really struggle with that. So just using my Nouveau glue to get those stuck down. You may see that I've got the new tip on that glue. It's a fine tip that Nouveau have created for their Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, so I'm just trying that out. It seems to work very well so far. It's not quite as long of a tip as my other glue bottle, but the massive advantage is that it's Nouveau. And I do really like the Nouveau glue. It's by far and above my favourite PVA glue. So just wrapping up those edges with my fingernails, and now I'm coming in with some of the frames from this collection. I love these chipboard frames, and you get so many in a pack. I really do need to focus on using them. So I wanted to create almost like a skyscraper feel. I wanted to break up the edges of that mixed media on the background and bring the line of sight up the page, and you'll see how I do that shortly. But first of all, my title is going to be the Arconia. So I'm bringing in these Florence alphabets from Bella Boulevard. Now this building is actually called the Belle Nord, for anybody who's interested. It's on 225 West 86th, but in the film it's called the Arconia, so that's what I decided to go with as my title. So using the chipboard alphabet from this collection, definitely weren't enough E's in this because I've already run out of them, but I just relent because it's only for the weather and use a 3 for my E. I'm going to eventually layer those letters on top of one another so it's less noticeable anyway. So bringing that blue frame up to the top, I try putting this one at the side here, but it does end up at the top. And that creates that visual impact that I was looking for with the high buildings and bringing the elements up high on the page. So just going through the ephemera and papery pieces now to see what I can use. I saw that title that said sightseeing, and I thought that would work nicely because it was definitely a day of sightseeing. Well, a whole holiday of sightseeing. In fact, that was all we did really. And just messing around with bits and seeing where I can put them. I'm loosely sticking to the sketch in that I'm adding an embellishment cluster top left and bottom right, and then trying to build up above the photos here. The title is where the sketch suggests as well. So most of my embellishments will be these frames. So I really like that tag there in the top left with the word sightseeing on it. I'm just moving these chipboard alphas over a little bit, as I mentioned, and layering them up, just so that it fits nicely in that space. And then I had these stars that I'd cut using my LE Studio die previously, so I thought they would work nicely on here because obviously we're sightseeing the stars places. It was a film set, so I just thought that they would work. Using dies is a brilliant way to get more use out of your stash, using scraps of paper or extending the embellishments that you've got in a kit. It really works. So I'm going to be using dies more, especially now we've got our own range being made at Hey Little Magpie. It's very exciting. So working out which way round to have those stars because they've got lines on them, so I want to make sure they're the right way up for me. And then I found this tag that says explore, so I'm thinking about putting it down the left hand side there, but it does get moved, and I was just looking at that banner as well, but I didn't really want to bring the pink into the page, so we end up moving that explore tag down to the bottom there, and then I find this strip that says always choose new experiences. Now here, look at what happened. I unscrewed my glue bottle forgetting that the new nib was screwed onto the bottle and hadn't realised I'd unscrewed the actual nib. So when I went to squeeze it out, I squeezed a huge blob of glue out all over the layout. So I've just scraped that off quickly with my finger and then put it on my mixed media mat, and I shall just dip things into that now to use up the glue that's there. I was so frustrated that I'd done that. So I've dipped in that tag that says explore. I'm just adding some foam pads underneath. There we go. And then that just holds it up in place because it's over those chipboard frames and things. And now I'm just going to stick those top chipboard frames down I do end up gluing the photo mat flat over the top of those frames. Now obviously it does create a little bit of warping, but my pages are always so bulky, there is a little bit of warping in my albums anyway, so it really doesn't bother me at all. But if you prefer a flat page, you probably want to, if you're going to recreate this layout, I would add some foam behind that full photo mat there. But here I am just gluing it down with gay abandon. So there we go, that's that down, and then I just need to add this little frame underneath. Just popping that there, and then I can bring those stars back in again as well. So need to work on this top bit. So again, just trying to use up that glue that I'd squidged out before. So using the tag to mop it up from my glass mat, and then just using some glue from the bottle to stick the other pieces down. And it's quite a simple layout, although there's quite a lot on it. It is quite a simple layout for me, and I really did enjoy this sketch. It's by Tracey England, if I didn't say that already. So do check the description box down below to see the playlist of everybody else who's joining in on this hop. There's also a group on Facebook called 30 Days of Sketches with Christie's Beautiful Life, and there are now 14 albums in there, each with the 30 or 31 days of that month where Christie had the series, and hundreds and hundreds, well, thousands of people's takes on those sketches. It's absolutely wonderful to look through for inspiration. So just getting those last stars stuck down now, and then adding some wax twine to my tags. So some on this bottom one, which I'm going to stretch right the way across the page and tie around, well, stick on the back. That just extends that line right the way across the page per the sketch. And then I'm going to add some to that top tag after I've done my journaling. I forgot which way I'd done this. So the journaling, it's just says, the Bell Nord, 225 West 86th Street. The building uses the Arconia on only emerges in the building. Was a must-see for us all, for all of us, and it really was so striking. So again, it's just getting those details down. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know how important journaling is for me, so that I don't forget those little details of where it was that we went and why, and what the building was, because I think, you know, I'd look back at this album in years to come and just think, why have I got a picture of that building? So at first I think I'm going to tie this wax twine with a bow, but I don't like the look of it. So once I've trimmed off the ends, I do loosen it and then just glue it lightly down to the layout. You'll see just here. Just leave it to trail along. So look at how careful I'm being now opening that glue. Making sure, I think that was definitely a lesson learned. I was very lucky that it didn't go over everything. So this is off the 6x12 sticker sheets. I just tore a piece of this notebook paper off just to tuck down the left-hand side of that photo, just to complete that photo mat really. And then I'm just going to look through and see what else I can find in the sticker sheets. These are the 6x8 stickers that Vicki Boutin creates for each of her collections. I find a couple of word phrases that I want to use. This one at the top says obsessed, because we were obsessed with this programme at the time. And then this one here says checklist, because this was definitely on our checklist. And then I forget if there was another one. Yes, find your way, because we had to find the building, work out where it was. So now just a few of the stars, just to complete those clusters. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I shall see you again very soon. Bye.